fancy intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Welcome back, everybody, and I'm going to be doing this a little bit earlier than normal, but I'm doing it because they've already announced some upcoming changes to the event store. So every single time that we have an event store roll around, which is about every 3 to 4-ish months, we typically get a big event store about 4 times a year. We get these like little event stores, but y'all know the main thing we're talking about is the event store. So generally in week 2, I try to give my recommendations of what I think players should go after. Now, there have definitely been a lot of people talking about how this event store feels lighter than other event stores. And if you feel that way, feel free to comment down below because feedback is always warranted. That doesn't mean that they always listen, but it's always good to pass along your feedback because, well, at the end of the day, it's your game. It's your game more than it is Scopely's game. I don't care who owns it. Without y'all, it doesn't exist. So we've already gotten 2 of the 5 things that I requested getting added into the event store. So before we go any further and talk about all this, let's talk about what all I would personally say you should go after in the game. And we'll start with the announcement. Shout out to them, by the way. We'll see if this continues, but we are now 2 weeks into this month or this arc, and the communication, shout out to Obsidian Hamster, shout out to Sierra, and shout out to Eco. The communication this month has been significantly better than in recent months. If they manage to do it for 2 more weeks, it's going to be my first big positive grade on communications in a while. And I don't try to say that tongue in cheek. Like, I seriously am very happy with what we've had this month. May that continue to be how things are. You're doing well. Not perfect, but it's certainly the best, in my opinion. It's only 2 week spans. I'm not going to get too crazy. The best 2 weeks we've had in a long, literally months. So let's talk about what this particular announcement says and reads. Few updates for everybody. That includes you who are currently watching this video. We received reports of crypto transmissions event disappearing. They took care of that, blah, blah, blah. Buried treasure, SMS, SB, and ALB are now live. There you go. But the one that you want for this video is point number 3. There will be an Enterprise E officer special in the event store this week, hence why we're making the video, in response to community feedback. Keep an eye out for when that goes live. So at the time of making this video, it is not currently live yet, but I wanted you to be aware that that was happening because not everybody uses Discord. So if you're not in my Discord, which I understand, not everybody's in Discord. If you're not in my Discord or my Facebook page, maybe you didn't know. Well, now you're watching YouTube and you know. So with that, we're going to see the Enterprise E officers get it added in for a short time. So expect to see Enterprise E Picard, Enterprise E Data, etc. Now, beyond that, what else has gotten added? So this one's kind of squirrely. I did announce it in my Discord. The reason I say that it's squirrely is the requirements are kind of weird. But number 1, I requested 5 things personally, but I don't want to make it seem like it's all Rev Deuce. Shout out to the official moderators. Shout out to the other content creators who also have been giving a lot of feedback saying, hey, add things. So that was number 1. And then the second thing that we've gotten added in is the Borg Cube. Now, the Borg Cube is really squirrely. The way that you should see the Borg Cube in the event store now, this one's already live, is if you had not fully pulled it in the last event store, you should see it now. Why that's the logic metric they use, I don't know, but it is in the event store now. We have confirmed it with hundreds of players. If you believe you should be seeing it and don't, put in a ticket with customer support. That's really all I have beyond that. I don't understand why the logic was to set it who didn't full pull it the last time. It's like they forgot that there was a battle pass included. But anyway, there you go. That's been added in. So those 2 things have importance. Let's get into the meat and yummies and the bread, the meat, the potatoes of this one. Number 1 is going to be my recommendation for most players. As always, I've been saying this for about 5 years. Officers are forever. So I'm going to encourage you to get officers. Now, which ones? Number 1, unlocking Jonathan Archer is incredibly important. Why is unlocking Jonathan Archer so important? Because game design told me this directly. The Xindi loop, the loops that we've had the past couple months between the Xindi reptilians and the Xindi aquatics were literally based around having this guy. So this whole 5-minute loop they sold us was a lot of it about having Archer. And love or hate the Xindi loop, it is a loop in the game that is going to be important for players for the foreseeable future. You're going to want to progress through it, get some of the things, and there are good favors in that tree and good things. in that tree. So you're going to want to be able to do those exchanges. And then getting the NX-01 eventually, you definitely want Archer for the NX-01 unless you're using like the cheese crew. We'll worry about that later. As far as this event store goes, unlocking Jonathan Archer should be a priority for players that don't have it. And if you're like a level 38 player saying, well, should I bother with this? Yes, if you can get Jonathan Archer now, I would recommend it because we don't know how he's going to be sourced long term. There just has not been, shown to us how that's going to happen. So I would say that is extremely important and valuable. Getting Trip Tucker is also valuable. Keep in mind that these are epic. So getting these unlocked and maxed is going to be difficult. So I'm really more just pushing the unlock. Don't worry about trying to max these officers or anything like that, because even if you just wanted to unlock him, if you had no shards, would cost 690,000 event store currency. I'm gonna tell you right now, I would be shocked if any free-to-play gets anywhere near that amount of currency. However, if you're like me and you're somewhere around halfway, 300,000 currency is actually pretty doable for free-to-play, even though it feels like this month has been a little bit light. They have released a compensation chest and various things to try to help players, and we're going to continue to push for them to add more. If you remember, in the last big event store that we had, the last week of that month, they threw in a lot of event store currency. So we'll see if they do the same thing this go around. Also want to reiterate that the Enterprise E officers are getting added. Just to remind you about their abilities and who they are real quick, let's just go ahead and pull up our officer screen and show you. Now, which ones they've said they're going to provide has not been made clear. We do know that that's Enterprise E Riker, Enterprise E Picard, Enterprise E Data, Enterprise E Troy. So there's only 4 of them to begin with, and these 3 are actually part of your holodeck, even though it's a very slow progression process. I would honestly expect to see all of them in some form or fashion for you to go after. I am 4 shards short of Enterprise E Riker. I would like to unlock him, but the most important one for the average player is Enterprise E Data. He is game-changing in a positive way. He is very beneficial for your hostile grinds across most hostiles, and very similar to Hugh. Hugh is probably the only officer I would say in terms of hostile grinding that's more valuable than Data at this point, especially because he works for all hostiles. He's not limited like Chen and Talon are. Enterprise E Picard would be second in terms of importance, mainly because he's another loot officer, and combining him with Enterprise E Data makes some really nice runs, especially if you're doing rep grinding or loot grinding, something say like Xindi, but you don't have Archer. Then finally, Enterprise E Riker. The captain's ability is okay, kind of almost like a PvP ability, but right here increases your hit chance every time you score a hit. That's actually kind of nice. So we like that. That's a level 1 ability, but it also depends on how many weapons you're firing. So if you're firing 4 weapons, that means I would do 8% in 1 round, and then it does stack and is cumulative. So officers are going to be the big thing as always. Moving on, ship blueprints. Anything that can expedite a grind, in my opinion, is good. Now, officers are still going to be the most valuable, but next up is going to be ship blueprints for things like the Monobeam, the Defiant, the Voyager, the Mantis, the Borg Cube. The Borg Cube is very last. For example, if you had to choose between the Mantis and the Cube, Mantis. Defiant and Cube, Defiant. Voyager and Cube, Voyager. Monobeam and Cube, Monobeam. If that is the last specialty ship you have to unlock, then sure, go after the Borg Cube. But if you look through the list, there are a lot of things here that are very valuable. For example, the Meridian is only sourced through event stores like this. So if you don't have a Meridian, you're level 25 player out there, get the Meridian. I've got 2 of them maxed. You're going to want them, and they're actually really cheap in the game. But they're actually very cheap to unlock these here in the event store. So it's easy to go and obtain. And then you get into what's, for the most part, I would say a mixed bag, because the refits are kind of meh. Depending on what level you are, you might see basically no refits at all. And I might be tempted by this. We'll see. I shouldn't be, but I might be. But truthfully, the refits don't really provide much. I would say that the Stellar refit, if you're not doing your Apex on Thursdays, this can be free to play sourced, is maybe a good one for you to go after. Some of these are basically nothing but cosmetics like these, but I will admit, I do love the Galore class refit for the Valdor, but most of these don't have a lot of value to you as a player. I do want to point out that if you see the projectiles, remember, those are valuable because they are like a research. Once you unlock them, they apply to all your ships, and that has value. Cloaking. Unless you're a heavy PvP player, I don't see cloaking having value for most. So it's up to you if you want to get it. I would not recommend it. Again, officers and ship blueprints are basically it. Resources and materials, I don't even want to open the box because that is simply not worth it. The exchange rates are terrible. Cosmetics, very, very low value. And then if you go into special currencies, you can maybe make an argument that if you're running low, you can grab some things like the Proto Catalyst, which you need for Forbidden Tech upgrades, or maybe you can scroll on down the list and decide you want Syndicate XP, but the trade-in is not very high, right? Like 7,500 to only get 3,700 Syndicate XP. If you're a low-level player, that's a decent amount. If you're a high-level player, that's poop. So value, right? Honestly, the biggest value is going to come into speeding up all these specialist ships we've got over the past year and officer acquisition. We'll see if they have anything else. I would say my advice has stayed the same. Save your resources, save your stuff till the very end. Comment down below what you plan on getting. The only exception to the save to the end rule that I have is if another officer special comes up, because I did request the Voyager officers get added as well, and you can go after Enterprise E data, you might want to do that. But generally speaking, save to the very end to number one, see how much loot currency you have, and number two, see what all is available, because as this event store has shown, they will add stuff every event store. They've added 2 things so far. We'll see if they add more. If you have questions for me, hit me up on Facebook or Discord. I appreciate every single one of you. And as always, we'll continue to push feedback based on what y'all say to get things added into this little game of ours. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with their Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next Star Trek League Man video. Appreciate every single one of you. Truly. Thank you. See you on the next one.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.